Got it. Okay, thank you. So if you don't want your face on screen, do feel free to turn your cameras off. That's absolutely up to you. I can see that we've got some little people that have joined us today as well. So hello to our little people. It's always lovely to have you here. So just for our adults, we will be talking about lots of different things. All of the language that I use this afternoon will be absolutely appropriate, and I won't talk about anything that's going to make you krill in front of your children. So, but we're going to talk about some fairly risky things. So, but we'll deliver that in really quite a nice way. So just before we start, a little bit about me so you know who I am. So my name's Traci Good, and I'm an online safety consultant. I've been delivering online safety now for just over 11 years, actually, for quite a long time. And my background is very much in safeguarding. So at the moment, I do things like I sit in a government working group looking at how we best support vulnerable and SEND learners online. I work on things like Project Evolve, and I'm working on a peer-on-peer abuse helpline. My most important role, though, is that of Chief Ivenger. So I've recently had funding from the Police and Crime Commissioner and Derbyshire County Council to work with every primary across the city and the county. And we're looking at trying to raise standards and raise awareness and improve behaviours and just generally make the internet a better place, because I think that the internet is an amazing place. I think that children being online is going to offer them amazing opportunities. And regardless of what we hear in the news, actually, for the vast majority of time, the vast majority of our children are perfectly safe online. That said, they do push boundaries. They do things that we rather that they hadn't done. They will take chances. And for some of them, they may face significant harm when they're online. But as parents, as carers, it's our role to kind of understand what some of those risks are and put things in place to make sure that our children are as safe as they possibly can be. So the session today lasts for an hour and 15 minutes. I try and leave 5 minutes at the end for any questions, but do feel free at any point in the session to either send me direct messages or to unmute yourself and go, Traci, can I just ask you, I don't understand what you're talking about. Can you just explain this thing? And I'll do my best to explain. We're going to look at some of the statistics from the iVentures survey this afternoon. And we've recently started the survey this year. And we're asking young people in school what their thoughts and feelings are about being online, and we're also asking parents as well. And there's quite a gap between what parents say and what children say. So we'll look at some of that as well. But I'm going to start off by sharing my screen with you. As I say, if at any point you want any questions answering, please do just shout out. Okay, so I'll try and not make it death by PowerPoint, because there's nothing worse than that. Absolutely nothing worse. Okay, so we call it Online Survival Guide for Parents and Carers. I'm just going to turn my light off because it's otherwise I get a little bit blinded. Because sometimes it feels like we're trying to survive, we're trying to work our way through what children are doing online. But the reality of it is, do you know, there's not that much that we need to know to be able to keep our children safe. So I thought this afternoon we'll break it down into a few different areas. So what we'll do is we'll start off by looking at how much do we know and how much do we need to know to keep our children safe, because sometimes the whole online thing, all those different games and apps and devices, sometimes it just feels like it's a bit of a mountain for us to climb. But the reality, as I say, is that we don't need to know everything about everything, and I'll give you some quick wins on how we can find out what our children are doing and how we keep them safer. We'll look at what's hot, so we'll look at some of the most popular apps and games. We've pulled those from the iVentures survey that we ran last year. So this is very much about Derbyshire and Derby City children. So it's not about what children in London or Newcastle are doing. It's very much about Derbyshire. So it's really relevant to us and our children. Then we look at our next steps. So we look at, we know that we don't need to know everything. We know the sorts of things that young people are doing and what some of the risks are that are attached to that. What do we do? What changes do we make to make sure that our children are safe? And then finally, we'll look at support. So if things do go a little bit belly up, if things just aren't quite, things aren't quite right, whereabouts can we go to if we need some help, if we need some advice? And for me, it's all about quality. It's about signposting you on to people who will properly support you, not give you some really random advice. So we'll start off with our early years. So we're going to start off by looking at what our early years children are doing, and just kind of work our way through the school, and we'll look at how we don't need to know everything about everything. So early years. I always say that for those of you that have got children that are in early years, so I'm looking at sort of like preschool up to like reception year 1, you're in a really, really lucky position. And I've said that for quite a while, and I've just become a grandma, and it's just reminded me just how it's not an easy job, is it? But when we're looking at online safety, it gives us the opportunity to start to put boundaries in place and to be really consistent and set clear expectations for what we want our children to be doing. So what we tend to find is children in this younger age bracket, as parents, we engage with them an awful lot more. So we may sit with them while they're on devices. We may select the sorts of things that they're allowed to go on. And what we tend to find is for this age group, in general terms, there are always exceptions, but in general terms, what we tend to find are children who are doing a lot of things like going on CBeebies or Disney Plus or watching cartoons on YouTube. So doing some really quite directed, and I call it hidden educational learning. That is when we're playing games, particularly on sites like CBeebies and on Disney Plus, we're learning stuff as we go along, but it's wrapped up in all this fun stuff, so we don't actually realise that we're learning things. But as I say, parental engagement is we tend to engage an awful lot more. And so when we first start to allow children on devices, we start to be really clear about how we expect our children to behave, and we put some kind of time boundaries in place, it's easier then to keep on top of that as our children grow. So when we think about boundaries, one of the questions that I get asked more than anything else, is how much time should my child spend online? And that for me is an incredibly difficult question to answer. And I don't want to kind of like duck the question, but there's so many variables, and it depends how old your child is. And this is just as relevant for those of you that have got older children. It depends how old they are, and it depends what they're doing when they're online. So if our child is spending, say we tell them that they can have half an hour, you can go on the tablet for half an hour, and they spend that half an hour doing some research for school, or if they spend that half an hour talking to their grandma or granddad, or talking to I don't know, a parent that doesn't live at home, or they're doing something where they're getting something back from it, I would call that a fulfilling activity. But if your child spends half an hour watching other people opening loot boxes or Kinder eggs, still a thing, I'm still not sure what that's all about, I would call that fluff and filler. And I think we need to sort of like weight the activities that children do differently. So if they're doing something that's fluff and filler, and we've all done it, endless scrolling, just scrolling for scrolling's sake, there's absolutely a place for that. But if that's all we're doing, that's probably not a positive way of spending our time. But if our children are doing something fulfilling, then we would probably give that higher weighting, and we would encourage our children to do more of the fulfilling stuff and less of the fluff and filler. So when we're thinking about time, again, it's not my role to tell you how to parent your children. We all parent our children differently. And as we look at the results that have come through from the iVenture survey, when we ask how much time do you spend online, typically children in early years and key stage 1 spend up to an hour a day online. When we're looking at children in key stage 2, they say that they spend between 1 and 3 hours a day online. So we know that as we get older, we tend to spend more time online. And as a family, you need to decide what works for us. Some families have tech-free days where they say, today you're not having any time. It could be on a weekend, your children spend more time online. but work out what works for you, what works for your family, and then try and encourage your children to be doing more of that fulfilling stuff and less of the fluff and filler. Just trying to get that balance right, and being consistent around the amount of time that they spend online. So, for example, if we say to our children, like, you can have half an hour, just remind yourself that in half an hour that you go and check in with your child, because they'll sit on a device for hours if you let them. Most of them, you give them the opportunity, will sneak off quietly into a corner, quiet as a mouse. My mum or dad or whoever, they won't know that I'm here. I'm just going to carry on playing. But that's not good for the health if they're spending all of the time glued to a screen. So if we're setting a time limit, be consistent around that and remind them that it's now time to come off your device. And this sort of like links in with the next one, which is behavior. So noticing behavioral changes. So if you come to tell your child it's time to come off your device and they get really, really angry or frustrated, or even if they go, then we're starting to see behavioural changes. And if we can nip that in the bud when children are smaller and set clear expectations for how we want them to behave, then that absolutely pays dividends as they grow older, particularly when we're looking at sort of like years 4, 5, 6, when we start to see real behavioural changes. We're just kind of like at that start of children becoming young adults, and we start to see a few hormones flying around, and we want more privacy and all of this sort of stuff. At that point, we tend to see more of those behavioural changes. So if we can be really, really clear with our children about what we expect of them, then that's got to be a really, really positive thing. So early years, as I say, a lot of parental engagement, a lot of parents who will decide what their children can do when they're online, and set time and behavioural boundaries. As we move up the school a little bit, what we then find, so we're looking at years 2, 3, and 4, we start to see a bit of a shift around into more creative activities online. And one of the things that I see quite a lot at primary is self-generated content. And by this, I mean children either making photos, videos, and sharing them with others. Now, they might just be sharing them with the family. They might just be like making a bit of a goofy video and sharing that with you. Or it could be that they're making a video and they're putting that on YouTube or on TikTok. But we start to see a bit of a change, and we see more creativity. And we also start to see a lot more gameplay at this age as well. When we did the iVenture survey last year, Roblox was the most popular game right across every age group in the survey. So from reception up to year 6. And Roblox is one of those games where you can play against other people, you can play against your friends, you can talk to other people, and so that's happening at a much younger age. So, but when we think about the sharing of videos, just remembering that if our children are starting to make videos and share them online, make sure that you're engaging with the content that they're putting up online. So are you happy with the videos that they're sharing? If your child won't show you the videos that they're sharing, then for me, that would be a bit of a red flag. So why don't they want me to see that? So starting to, making sure that we're still being an engaging parent, we're still engaging with what they do, we're still interested in what our children are doing online. A lot of it is absolutely amazing. Do you know, some of the videos that children can make and the way that they can change and shape and adapt photos and content is really eye-opening. Some of them have got some amazing skills. We also know that with a lot of the apps on the content that we've shared, and people aren't always kind, and particularly primary children, they can struggle to exciting stuff. I mean, so like it's more exciting from an online safety perspective. The way to stage is children start to be able to go on they want to be using the same apps as everyone else, and we start to see that peer pressure starting to kick in, and want to go on Fortnite, and so on, YouTube, on TikTok, or whatever they do. So really, it's to use, so I really against people that they do know. But as we move up through the school, what we tend to find is the functionality within those games changes, and that allows us to people who don't know. Functionality within games changes, and that functionality where we can talk to other people. But some of that functionality might be around sharing our location. Some of that functionality may be around live streaming. And quite a Adventure survey for this year, where we've looked at what children say and what parents say, and we've asked children, and we've also completed surveys, and we've asked the same question of parents. So, has someone that your child doesn't know in life ever contacted them online? And only 3% of parents said yes. So, between what parents think and what children say. So, again, it's always worth having this conversation with your children. So, are you playing games against people that you don't know? Are they your in-gaming friends? If you are playing games against people you don't know, making sure that they're sharing things like this important that you know if your child is gaming against people that you don't know. Because one of the other pieces of functionality it's a cosmetic enhancement in game. So, say for example, your child's playing Fortnite, you start playing like Soldier, and where it stands, you out in the game, so you'll get targeted. So, most of your people, when they start playing a game like Fortnite, they will want to change the look of their soldier, so they buy a skin, which is the cosmetic enhancement only tell us if they think, okay, your first reaction is going to be, you're going to freak out, you're going to take my game's console off me, therefore I'm not going to tell you. We panic. We often panic, and we think something happens to our child, someone sends something, effect, because what happens is, something happens, they probably a little bit is around live streaming. So I just wanted to see this out. So and try and influence their thoughts, their feelings, their purchases. And a lot of the most popular influencers are very handsomely paid. Thank you very much. Some of them are making significant amounts of money, which makes it a very, very attractive deal to our children. So, I think if I was young, I'd be like, oh, well, that's a piece of cake, isn't it? All you have to do is sit and look at a camera, just jabber away for a bit. People think you're amazing. They'll give you like free gifts, or they'll donate money into your PayPal account, and I'll be rich beyond my wildest dreams. And for some of them, they will. Some of our children undoubtedly will make a significant amount of money from live streaming, but most of them won't. And I kind of compare it to football. I don't know anything about football, but I kind of understand the analogy, so bear with me. So a lot of children want to be professional footballers, and some of them might have a kick around with a ball in the back garden. Some of them might make it to Sunday league and be playing in a team on a Sunday. Some of them might get scouted. Some of them might make it to the dizzy heights of Stockport County. Some of them will make it as far as Manchester City. Not that I'm giving away where I come from, but most of them won't. Most of them will never get any further than having a kick around in the park. And live streaming and influencing is exactly the same. So there's going to be some people, a very, very small number of people, that kind of rise to the top of that pile and make a lot of money. But most people will just be sort of like just bimbling along down at the bottom somewhere and having some followers and perhaps having a bit of fun along the way. But my real concern about live streaming is around giving those gifts. It's around the fact that sometimes children's behaviour changes when they're online, and sometimes children get a bit carried away. We get a bit excitable. We need to remember our children are just children, and sometimes they'll do stuff that we never imagined. They might say things that we never would have thought that our children would say, or do things that really take us by surprise. And my concern is that on live streams, sometimes children can be forced into doing stuff that they don't want. They can be coerced into doing things that they don't want. And if they did something that perhaps they were a bit embarrassed about, and that had been recorded, and someone said, well, I've got a recording of you now doing that really embarrassing thing, and if you don't do more of those embarrassing things, then I'm going to share this, I'm going to put it on YouTube, or I'm going to share this with your family, or I'm going to share it publicly. And that can be a really, really strong hook into a child or young person. So when we talk about live streaming, although I can doing live streams, I can also see the risky side of that as well. So again, I feel like it is that if you've got children in year 4, 5, 6 and above, if you talk to them about live streaming and talk to them about some of the risks, and that if they're going to live stream, they should be doing that either with their door open so you can see and hear what's going on. They would never live stream in front of you, that'd just be too cringy. But for me, I guess, and I've already said it's not my job to tell you how to parent your children, but if my children were younger, I would be very cautious about allowing my child to live stream. The other thing with live streams is we tend to get carried away with our mouths a little bit. It's as you're broadcasting yourself live, people are typing in comments, they're scrolling up the screen, everyone can read those comments, including the person that's doing the stream, and they may choose to answer those questions, and sometimes we just give away far too much personal information. I've just had a notification, someone's put their hand up. If you'd like to unmute and just ask your question, Rosie.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, how do you know if that, because I've never heard of live streaming, how do you know, what site is it? How do you know it's not just like that they're FaceTiming a friend? What does it look like?
So it varies. So the hard thing about live streaming is that it's becoming so popular now. It's integrated into a lot of the mainstream apps. So we think about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, so we can live stream from all of these. So the best thing to do, I would say, is have a conversation with your child and I'd just out and out ask them, so are you live streaming? Is that something that you do? Let's sit down and have a conversation about it. And again, it's about checking out the apps that they're downloading. If they're at primary, check out the apps that they're downloading before they download them, and even up until they're about 12 or 13. And if you're not sure if an app will allow you to live stream, I do have some resources that I'm going to give to Mr. Buxton. I'll try and post them in the chat. I've got links to some really, really good websites that will tell you the functionality of the different apps and games. So it will tell you whether live streaming is something that's embedded within the app or game. So if your child says to you, but I'm only using, I don't know, TikTok, you can then have a look, and it's like, does it have live streaming capabilities? Does it have chat capabilities? So as a parent, you've got a better understanding of what they are able to do. I hope that helped.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so just moving on, because I am a terrible chatterbox. So I wanted to share with you the most popular apps and games, and we'll look at some of the pros and some of the cons of each of them, and then we'll also look a little bit about whereabouts we can go if we need more help or support. So again, these were pulled from the iVengers survey. Don't freak out about the very last that one there. Don't freak out about that one. As I say, I am aware that we've got children and young people around, and that's not one of the things that children said that they were doing online, but it's a visual reminder for me. So the most popular apps and games that we had. So again, this looks at functionality. So again, we're just focusing in on functionality, and this is why you don't need to know everything about everything, because the first three were the three most popular games that came up in the different age restriction guidelines. So Roblox, Fortnite, and Grand Theft Auto. So Roblox aimed at children aged 7 and above. Fortnite is for children aged 12 and above, and Grand Theft Auto is for adults aged 18 and above. Now, as we look at those, even if we've never played them, we kind of like look at them and go, yep, they all look very, very different. But actually the functionality is very, very similar. So when I go into classrooms, I do quite a lot of work in classrooms, working with children and young people, and I'll always ask them, so tell me, what do these three things have in common? And they'll say, well, you can spend money in them. So yes, you can. You can play games against lots and lots of other people. Yes, you can. You can talk to other people. Yes, you can. You can kill made sure that my card details are safe, that they're password protected, so my child can't just go, oh yeah, buy that, I'll buy that. I hear that quite a lot, that children still do that quite often. Can my child kill people in this game? Am I happy with that? Is that something that I'm okay with? And you know, it's okay to say no. It's absolutely okay to say no. How it can share your location on a map. And if I remember, before I finish, I will show you exactly what I mean. So on them. So the social media or traditional social media, social networking, Snapchat and Instagram came up top. What I would say is there doesn't seem to be that much Instagram use around primary age children. There's a little bit, but not. It's not a massive thing. Snapchat far more popular. So with both of these, the idea is that you take photos, you can change or modify them in some way. You can have conversations with your friend, you can share videos on there. The reason that we single Snapchat out, though, is because, as I say, we do have the snap maps on there, and I'm jabbering away about it, but you know what? I'm just going to bring it up on my phone, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That's if I can find it on my phone. I've just bought a new phone. You know, I can't find anything on here. I'll keep on playing with it for a moment, and then when I've found it, I'll share it with you, and I'll show you just how accurate the snap maps function is. But it allows you to share your location. You have to opt in, so it doesn't do it automatically. So you have to say, yes, I want to share my location. And it's incredibly accurate. So it will pinpoint wherever that device is, which is usually attached to your child. Never usually a million miles away from their devices. It will pinpoint you to within usually about 1 to 5 meters of where you currently are. So it is incredibly accurate. I'm just going to move on quickly. So I've got an eye on the clock, and I know it's still got quite a lot to tell you. The first two that we've got on the bottom, we've got YouTube and TikTok, and these were the two most popular apps that came out around sharing, making and sharing videos, making and sharing content. So YouTube now has 3 different variations. So we've got YouTube Kids. So if you've got children under the age of 8 who haven't yet discovered regular YouTube, getting them onto YouTube Kids in their own videos, so they can't go off piste and just look at whatever they like. Although the adverts and everything are far more filtered and child appropriate. You can set timers so that the screen will freeze after a certain amount of time. Then we've got regular YouTube, which is the YouTube that we all know and love. And now we've recently seen the launch of YouTube Shorts. And YouTube Shorts only allows you to do a short video, rather than on regular YouTube, you can watch videos that last for hours and hours and hours. But YouTube Shorts is for short videos, very similar to TikTok, which is the next one on here. And TikTok has seen exponential growth, particularly during lockdown, and the 6 to 11-year-old age group are the largest growing group of people who use TikTok, and they spend more time on TikTok than 14 to 18-year-olds. So TikTok brought out their stats fairly recently, and they say that 6 to 11-year-olds spend on average 69 minutes a day on the TikTok platform. Now, I always try and be balanced about most of the apps and games that we look at, and TikTok is no exception. So there are some positives to it. There are some really good, funny, inspirational videos on there. But it's the one where I have to be really quite negative, and there are some really inappropriate, adult, horrendous, foul language, just shocking nasty videos on there too. So if your child is on TikTok, actually ask to show you. If you're not a TikTok fan, if you've not watched it before, ask your child to show you their TikTok account, and it will give you an idea of the sorts of videos that they're watching. The same as YouTube works on algorithms. So if you tend to watch a lot of videos of fluffy cats, it will suggest more videos of fluffy cats. If you tend to watch something that's quite angry or obscene, it will show you more of the same. So it's always worth checking in. If you set up an account now in TikTok, if you're under the age of 18, it'll automatically set it to private, but it's really easy to change that. And actually, for a lot of young people, what they want to do is they want their profiles out there. They want people to notice them. So setting your account to private kind of defeats the object. So again, talking to them about why we set our accounts to private, why that's important. If they're making content and sharing that they're happy for us as adults to view it as well. They're happy for mums, dads, teachers. Or would you be happy for your teacher to see it? If not, then you shouldn't be sharing it online. So again, just checking in with what they're doing. The next icon that we've got on here, this was the most popular live streaming app, and it's called Twitch. Twitch tends to be used a lot by the gaming community. So what we tend to find are gamers who are playing a game and live streaming their gameplay to an audience, usually of tens or hundreds of thousands of people. Again, if I was in a face-to-face session, I would show you Twitch. Obviously, I can't do that today. The reason I can't do that is there is often some really quite severe language on there. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to share that with you. But if you're interested in understanding a bit more about live streaming, you can have a look at twitch.tv, which is a website where Twitchers are, and have a look at like how it all works. And you'll see all that gift giving. You'll see people donating money to live streamers so that they don't have to go out to work and they can spend all of the time just live streaming. It gives you a better idea of it. So that was Twitch. The next one for me is really, really important, and it's WhatsApp. And the reason that this one is really important to me is, I think I said earlier, I do quite a lot of work in schools, and I've not worked in your school. I've not gone in and worked with the children in your school. So I'm going to take a few educated guesses here that in years 5 and 6 that we possibly have WhatsApp groups. So I'm not going to call them whole class WhatsApp groups, because there's always children who aren't allowed WhatsApp because you're supposed to be 16 to have a WhatsApp account. And there's always someone who's in charge, someone who's the administrator of that WhatsApp group. And there'll be people possibly in the class that they don't like, therefore they're excluded. You're not coming in our WhatsApp group, and that can be particularly hurtful. So one of the things that I've found as I've gone from school to school, I'm going to ask Mr. Buxton actually to be on standby in a second, just because I'm interested in what goes on in your school. One of the things that we find a lot in WhatsApp groups is that conversations sometimes are just childish, sometimes they're just silly, but sometimes they get a little bit out of hand, and we see bad language or bullying. Sometimes that's low level, sometimes it's more severe. Gossip, particularly about people that aren't in the WhatsApp group. But the thing that still fascinates me, and I don't know why children tell me this when I go into schools, they always go, I'll always ask them, has anyone ever phoned you in the middle of the night when you should be, when you should be asleep in bed? Like you've told your parents that you need your phone, or they've forgotten that you've got it, so you've taken it upstairs, and you've had a video call from someone in the middle of the night when you should be asleep. The number of children that go, yeah, that happens all the time, particularly in years 5 and 6. So what I would say as parents is, if you've allowed your children to have WhatsApp, again, absolutely your choice, but I think it's really, really important that as a parent, you check those WhatsApp messages. So have a look at which groups, what chat groups your child is in, and that you read through the messages regularly. But you also look at the calls log. So Have they received a call in the middle of the night off one of the friends? And it is usually off the friends, it's not usually off strangers. But have they been receiving calls, or have they been making calls in the middle of the night? And, you know, we often deal with parents who go, but my child would never do that. My child will never do that. And it's then you look at the phone and you go, oh, yes, my child, they did that. Oh dear. So just being aware that sometimes, you know, children get a little bit carried away. Yeah. And the worst thing, one of the worst things that we see is when a parent dives into a WhatsApp group and shouts at all the other children. And then their child really, you know, they really get it in the neck. So as a parent, if you're checking a WhatsApp group and you see that there's stuff going on that you don't like, talk to the other parents, ask them to check and decide amongst yourselves how you're going to deal with it as adults. But I think it's really important that we regularly check in on our child's devices. Mr. Buxton, can I ask, WhatsApp, is that an issue in school? Do you ever have any problems, or?
I think I can agree with pretty much everything you've said. There's plenty of kind of sideways glances when it's mentioned to children about being on them, you know, on WhatsApp late at night or sending messages or calling each other. So that's definitely a thing that I sense happens. And I think as well, just using it as a bit of a form of peer pressure, like you said earlier, and just allowing certain individuals into groups. And then when they're in those groups, kind of, I suppose, generating their own content in a way and creating their own, you know, sending their own little daft pictures or videos.
Yeah.
But I do know that it's obviously it's a starting point really for, you know, you're doing it within your WhatsApp group and then maybe you take it onto TikTok or something like that. So yeah, it's something that is definitely mentioned quite a lot, seems quite popular in our school.
Yeah. And as I say, it's something that I see I'm going to put my neck out and say every school that I go into, whole class WhatsApp groups, and there's only been one school that I've gone into where the children have said with absolute straight faces, so I've got no reason to disbelieve them, that no, actually our WhatsApp group is really nice, it's really friendly. One of the other issues that we get is once children have been added into a WhatsApp group, it's really, really hard for them to leave, really hard. And I've got to say, as an adult, I'm guilty of the same. I've been added into an Avon WhatsApp group, and it's with a friend, and I desperately want to leave because I don't want Avon, but I daren't in case I offend the lady because she's lovely. But yeah, so sometimes leaving the groups is really, really difficult, and even more so for children because if I leave, everyone's going to talk about me and I won't know what it is that they're saying about me. So I'm just going to stay. So even though I'm not enjoying the experience of being in this WhatsApp group, I'm going to stay so people don't talk about me. You can also set up, though, in WhatsApp, you can stop yourself from being added into groups, because that's, again, one of the other issues that children will say, I was added into the group, I didn't even want to be in it, but someone added me. You can set that up in your account settings on WhatsApp to stop that from happening. I do believe that I've got a help guide with that, so I'll send that to Mr. Buxton. Kieran, I can see that you've got a raised hand. Is there something you'd like to add?
Hi, yeah, it's Carrie Ann. I just
yeah.
want to add regarding the blocking someone to add you into a chat. Through what we've seen at home, you can block it and stop someone adding you to a chat. But if someone that you deem is okay adds you to a chat, and that other person that you've blocked also gets added to the same chat,
yes,
it doesn't stop you seeing the comments by the person you've blocked.
No, it doesn't. That's right.
So all it does is stops that person adding you. But if you're added all the time by lots of mutual friends, it doesn't actually block the content at all.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So yeah, I think that there are a lot of issues with WhatsApp, and it's fairly difficult to stay. I can say fairly difficult to stay safe on it. Particularly if you're a child, you can stop yourself from being added into any groups at all. You can set that up so that you can't be added into any groups. So if you're concerned about that, I mean, that's one thing that you can do. So you can start your own groups. So you've got control over who's in that group and who isn't. But yeah, it's. I think there are a lot of potential risks for young people from in the WhatsApp group, whole WhatsApp group thing. So yeah. I'm going to swiftly move on because I've got one eye on the clock still. So the next thing that I've got on here just refers to inappropriate content. So just being aware that if you can access inappropriate content on your devices, then potentially so can your children. So it's really, really important that we set up parental controls and that we filter what our children can see. Now, it's been a while since I've used Zoom, so you're going to have to bear with me a second while I try and I'm going to try and swap my screen just to show you something different. Oh, bear with me. I've overshot. So I'm going to try and swap this out to a different screen. I'm going to ask Mr. Buxton if he can see the Internet Matters website. Can you see that? Yeah, lovely. And I can also say, Kerry-Ann, have you still got your hand up, or is that a legacy hand? I think that's a legacy hand.
I've not got my hand up, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to share with you just a couple of websites where you can go, oh, it's not that one or that one, or that one, it's that one. Where you can go if you're not sure on how to set up things like filters or parental controls, because it can be a bit of a minefield. And it used to, when I first started doing online safety, it's like you had a Nokia phone and you had a computer that sat in the lounge and you couldn't go on the phone at the same time. Things have changed an awful lot since then. And so we've got so many different devices, we've got so many different apps, we've got so many different games. Sometimes it can be a real minefield. So, and I'll send this information out again to Mr. Buxton. I've got it all in like a little electronic leaflet with the links to these sites for you. And the first one is internetmatters.org, and it's really, really good. Right here in the middle, we've got setting controls, and it talks you through, it gives you guides on how to set controls on social media, on gaming platforms, phones and other devices, on your broadband, so on your search engines, loads and loads of control stuff there, really, really good. Whilst I'm on this site, I also wanted to show you that there's a load of guides and resources as well. So a guide to apps we've got on here, a guide to buying tech, lots and lots of different things. The first one that we've got here is about online issues. So say, for example, your child has told you that they're being bullied. You can just have a click on the cyberbullying, and there's lots and lots of advice on here, lots of stuff that will help you out as a parent. So for me, this is one of the best websites. But whilst I'm just sharing websites with you, I also wanted to share this site from the NSPCC. It used to be called Net Aware, and it had lists of all of the most popular apps and games and gave them a red, amber, green rating. But they've recently changed the name of it. So when it was Net Aware, it was a collaboration between the NSPCC and O2, but now just the NSPCC have taken it over, and it doesn't have a nice snappy name to it anymore, but the content is still just as good. So we've got lots of information on here about all sorts of different things. So if you're wanting to know about parental controls, we've got some stuff here, reporting concerns that you've got, so lots and lots of information. But by far, my favourite website of them all is this one, and it's called Taming Gaming, or taminggaming.com. So Taming Gaming is a game database. So say, for example, your child has asked you for a particular app or game, and you're not really sure about it. You're not sure whether it's something that you want them to play. So I'm gonna type in Roblox. Okay, so and if I type in Roblox, so your child's asked you, can I go on it? And you're like, I'm not really sure, I don't know very much about it. It gives you lots of information. So it gives you a short video, It tells you down here in the corner that it's an age 7. And then it just gives you loads of information. So how much it costs, it's free, what platforms you can play it on, all kinds of bits and bobs, okay? Lots and lots of information. I'm going to scroll down, keep on scrolling, all the way down to here. Eventually at the bottom, you get to a bit called Games Like. So if you read through that and you go, actually, do you know it's got a chat facility on it? And I'm not very happy about that. So let's have a look at games that are like Roblox, but don't have the chat facility. And then you can have a look through all of these. Gives you lots and lots of alternatives, which I think is absolutely fabulous. What's even better is if you have a child, just bear with me, I'll scroll. If you have a child that has some kind of learning difficulties, just zipping back. Oh dear me. Sorry, I've overshot. If you look on here, it will allow you to search for games that are good for people with a visual impairment, or good for people that can't read, or good for children that have got ASD or whatever. Lots and lots and lots of really, really good stuff on there. Kerry-Ann, I think that you've put your hand up again. I don't think that's a legacy hand. Have you got a question?
Sorry, I'm not sure why it's doing it. I'm not pressing the screen.
Oh, okay, no worries. I think perhaps it just keeps flashing at me as if to say, like, Tracy, you're not listening to me. Okay, so those are my 3 favourite sites. I should say as well, on the Internet Matters site, if you've got a child with additional needs, up here we've got inclusive, have SEND. So again, some really, really good stuff on there. So right, I'm going to try and do a quick change, Charlie, again. I'm not very successful at doing these, so bear with me. I'll hopefully bring me. Oh, look, I've got myself all at 6s and 7s now. It's because I've got a thing in the middle of my screen and I can't see. Bear with me. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second and just come back to you. Oh, right. Am I back on your screen?
We can still see the web browser.
I thought you were going to say that. There we go. That's what I want. Oh, it's not allowing me to screen share now. Can you see that now, Mr. Buxton? A ladder of trust.
It's just like a bar of the PowerPoint. Can't quite see it all.
Oh dear me. People, everything's going to pot. Right. Right. And now I know that I'm back with you now. I'm hoping that I'm back with you. Okay. Majority of time, as I said earlier, our children are perfectly safe online. Take them into the baby end of the pool and we hold on tight to them and we can put them in water. And as they come to close, we start to move on and they move and start to move and to make sure that they're okay. And then as they get older, okay. So for that you're not wearing the same level. To have it, but if you think about it, so keep on checking in on them. And a massive group chat. So, but using this app, using it, my child talk to people, can other people talk to my child? Am I okay with that? If not, am I convinced that my child will tell me if something happens online? They will tell me. And again, and making sure that age restrictions. I know that my wife said to me, if you've got a child, she will tell. Personal and private information, we can start to make money from people that are 13 over. I'm happy. Yes, this is okay. Again, it's about keep on checking in with them, but making sure the age restrictions are from playing Fortnite, and I said to tell me about how it feels. It has really negative impact on mental health and well-being. I feel like I wouldn't tolerate that behaviour if they were out on the street, if something didn't go their way, they threw something through a window, absolutely wouldn't that. Minutes for that, or whatever it is that works in your house. But look for those behaviours. Have those conversations, because an interested parent is far more likely to be an approachable parent. So, and make sure you talk to them. So be that safe place for them should things go wrong. YouTube. So if you YouTube parental controls, TikTok, we're going to videos that show you how to really, really useful. And for our children, very much the same. So, you know, a lot of stuff on there, lots of stuff on the website, so if something is lawful to break the law, it's horrible, and you also want to on Instagram, and either within 24 hours, they don't do anything about it, they go back to you and say, report harmful content website, and they will pick that complaint on behalf of the take that risk in its place. Just remember, the vast majority of the time, I'm not going to say, and so they want you to come back to Mr. Buxton, and I don't know whether you want to stop recording at this point.